Well, tough act to follow, but do want to echo some congrats on another Big Ten championship for Coach Izzo. This basketball team has been so fun to watch throughout the year, and obviously best of luck here in his 27th consecutive NCAA tournament starting Friday. But he's not alone. I mean, we got a lot of good things going too. Women's basketball, best of luck. Another back-to-back years making the tournament. Be cheering them on. Hockey, again, go for a tournament championship Saturday night. Try to get out to that one for sure. Adam's done a phenomenal job with that team. That team's been fun to mind. Gymnastics is going this weekend, Big Ten tournament. We wish them kind of the best of luck as well. But on our end, it is excited to get started. We did practice one this morning. A lot of work goes into that. These guys in the weight room, all of that, January, February, half of March. And so it was great to get back out there with them. I actually told the team at the end of practice that so many guys, body changes, faster explosions. You could see it. You could just feel it out of practice. Again, Coach Mack and his staff have done a great job getting us ready for this part. And it's always an exciting just time first look at 27 new guys. And it's not just all about the first look at those guys and the opportunity to see these guys that have been in the program now a year. Some of them have played college football for 2-3 years across the board on our roster. See the development and excited about working with them for 15 practices. On that, kind of through the preparation of practices and the thoughts going into it, want to take advantage of really all 15 practices. I think I might get asked about it today. We're going to kind of finish spring ball without a spring game. And there were some considerations with that. Some of it, you only get 15 of these. Some of the logic is a little bit of, when you do those, you prepare for those back half of the spring. We think the best for this current unit is to take advantage of all 15 practices, not leading into or prepping like you're going into a game. There's some logistics going on in the stadium, which we're excited about, in regards to scoreboard, some things to the press box, and so that can create some challenges. And then, you're always working with numbers, availability, what's best for the team. We're definitely going to do a couple scrimmages amongst ourselves throughout the 15 days. We're spreading those out a little bit, but we're excited to get started just back on this film, even after today. Today and Thursday's practice with just helmets and spiders, and then we'll get into full pads on Saturday. Hoping got some questions that I can answer.
I'm sorry, Todd, just to be clear, there would be no sort of public type
Correct.
of deal?
Okay. Yep. And again, just a lot of the thought leading into that was the way we want to take advantage of the 15 practices.
And then you kind of touched on the other programs. You feel like you guys have kind of been flying under the radar here? I mean, obviously, big football school, but, their other sports are doing really well, and you guys are.
I think it's great that so many of our sports are doing so well. It's been fun to be able to get to a lot of their games and things, and so our season is in the fall, and so we definitely want to have some excitement come September.
I'm wondering. I know that spring football, not having the public viewing has become an issue across the country right now. How much does that play a factor in terms of maybe what the portal is and how the poaching has been going on with it? I think it's a consideration. It was not the number one reason why we decided not to do it, but it's a consideration. Let's face it, this day and age, where the opportunity for players across the country to make decisions come the back half of April, it was a part of the conversation.
Jonathan, I'm wondering, when last year, obviously, you guys hit the ground running and nobody really had, maybe I guess 2 or 3 guys had experience in your system. Now you've got a certain chunk of your roster that knows the scheme. Of course, other guys are learning. How different does that make this spring when everybody's not starting from scratch for the most part, scheme-wise?
It's quite a bit different. A couple of coaches were talking about it. I mean, you just go out there. We got a lot of guys back that have been around for the year. Even just the continuity of the coaching staff, are really pleased with the majority of those guys back. Schematics haven't dramatically changed, right? The base of the system on offense, defense, special teams, we're a second year. So that feels like it continues to propel us. We're a lot further along than we were, call it 12 months ago.
Also wondering where you feel like roster-wise, where you guys have improved from Team 1 to your second year?
Well, we start with what we felt like were needs coming from the additions. 27 new guys started in January, offensive line up front. We wanted to create more competition in that room. We got that done. In the secondary, we added to that position where you're playing so many DBs this day and age. So many times you're out there with 5 guys. We needed to create more competition in that room. The receiver position was a priority, and 6 new guys there. And so we're excited to watch that kind of play out over spring camp here, those positions in particular.
Jonathan, at Pro Day, Tanner Miller, I think the word he used was, he talked about how if Aiden gets the protection he deserved, he could do some really special things this year. And I'm curious how much that was an emphasis going into this, spring camp, the 15 practices. How much is offensive line play vital in this stretch of the season?
Yeah, every position's vital. O-line's vital. Their play. I will say, in regards to protection, that's 11-man football, and so yes, it starts up front. Those guys giving Aiden some space and time, but at the same time, the ball needs to come out on time, and so that goes into detail, route running, getting to separation, all that. So it's a group effort, but it's something we're emphasizing this spring in regards to sack avoidance and being better protected of the quarterback.
Over signing day, you mentioned the not knowing about the NCAA's rule for 105 limit. Have you heard anything about that? And if so, how are you going to tackle the challenges of potentially only 105 players on the roster?
Yeah, we're making, call it tentative plans, because right now our understanding is that's where it's headed into August. Currently, we don't have that restriction, we'll call it in spring ball, but we're aware of it. And so as you're building your roster, you think about even depth per position and how many, and even goes into how you're going to practice. And so, because that's a difference. I think we had 118 on the roster this last season, and so that's a different number when you're down to 105. But those decisions on exactly how many per spot and who it is actually will be made in August.
Jonathan, you've been head coach of a lot of teams, offensive coordinator of a lot of teams. Is this the most new wide receivers you've had to incorporate in winter conditioning and going to spring? And is that a challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. Off the top of my head, thinking back here, I can't remember this many, especially in January, right? Like when I was coaching 10 years ago, majority of your new guys were coming in the summer. And so this is probably the most I've been around, and knowing that, we did put some thought into January, February, getting around these guys to get them a taste of the playbook and the system and all of that, and did some lead up to spring ball, or starting today, the last week of doing some walkthroughs and things so they could hit the ground running. Without watching the tape from practice today, I actually thought it was pretty clean. I mean, everybody's getting reps. Thinking about the passing game in regards to those wideouts, call the tight end with them. It wasn't a lot of busts. They're going in the right spots. Now, some of the stuff's getting challenged defensively, but for the first day, they digested quite a bit. Because I look at our install and how much we're putting in early on, it was not a light load. We challenged these guys on the middle side, and receivers handled it pretty well.
You had some important leaders who are graduating in Jordan Turner, Kyle Halliday on defense especially. I'm curious if you've seen anyone take some steps toward being a leader on the defensive side of the ball in winter and this spring ball.
Yeah, I think on the defensive side, Quindarius Dunnigan had a great offseason. He's got a ton of influence. I think Rukan, the way Ru has operated these last few months turns into that. I think Jordan Hall for sure. Wayne Matthews has stepped up in a big way. Malik Spencer. We've got some guys on that side that we're going to count on the leadership side.
Yeah, a lot of the guys you got in the portal this past offseason came from G5, maybe even some FCS, and I think a Bullard from D2. Is that kind of like the archetype you kind of look for? Some lower school guys that, have gotten some big production numbers?
Production was like the priority as we looked. We did. When we went in, knew on the areas or the positions we wanted to target, we wanted to have production, proven tape, snaps, starts, done it, and because you call it whatever level, there's still guys doing it against 20, 21-year-olds, and so that was a priority for majority of the guys that we took in the portal.
Mentioning the portal, running back Elijah Toliver, probably someone you watched a lot of film of. I know it's just one practice and one winter, but what are some early impressions with him? A guy that I imagine is going to get the ball that fans haven't seen yet.
Yeah, he's got a skill set. Just watching him today, had a nice couple runs. You could see some of his vision that we had seen on tape. Works really hard in the weight room. I think he's picking up pretty well. I'll be curious to kind of see him go when we get some shoulder pads on.
And Tullis and Frazier, what did they benefit from last year, and how are they looking?
Yeah, fast forward the year, I mean, a lot. Those guys did. They got a bunch of practice time, got a few carries in the game. Those guys contribute on special teams. So we're counting on those two to really make it competitive. We do got 2 youngsters in there that we're excited about with Zion, Jace. And so that room is open in regards to earning carries and playing time.
One more, Luka Vincic, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. Had some time last year at Oregon State. You knew him before. What does he bring? How do you see him fitting in?
We just knowing him, we do think he brings a ton just to the O-line room in regards to his mindset, his work ethic, his voice. He's familiar with the scheme, so it hadn't been a problem for him picking that back up. We kind of feel like he's got a little position flexibility, whether it's inside or outside, and so we're really glad he's here.
I'm curious, you and your staff are very detail-oriented in the way you approach things and coach, and I'm curious in the spring if maybe you take out a wider paintbrush and sort of get into more macroscopic type of concepts.
I'm not totally sure. Macro, or you say micro? I think I'll say just some big picture items we discussed as a staff. We're trying to raise the floor of this roster in regards to our goals for spring football. And so what's that mean? It means guys that maybe haven't played or younger, or maybe they're second, third last year on the depth chart. We got to raise the floor of those guys, get more guys that we feel like can contribute. We can trust them, add in depth, special teams, those kind of things. And then on the flip side of that, you think about the guys that, call them, they've been returning starters, maybe their third, fourth year in the college football. Like, it's tougher for those guys to make the same type of steps and improvement. So challenging our coaches to be able to, raise the floor of this roster, but also get our guys that are returning starters, top end players to continue and improve.
Jonathan, curious about Connor Moore. Played tackle, obviously, at his last place. Is that where you guys see him, or do you want to get a look at him other places as well?
We do see him at tackle. He probably could play some, but right now, especially with, we've got some tackles with Lepo not going through spring ball. He'll get majority of his time. Connor will at tackle.
I guess that kind of leads me into how healthy are you guys? Is there anybody, I guess?
We feel solid. We definitely got some guys that will not participate. I might give you just a few of them here. And no one's like season ending, but we're being kind of smart. Lepo being one. Dooley, Christian Phillips, we will see on that end. Parachek, feel awesome that he'll be back rolling in June, but you won't see much of him. Wayne Matthews, same way. Those are kind of the keynote guys that won't be going in the spring.
I'm wondering about when you got a chance in the off season to maybe go back through the film, what were maybe the things that might have been a little ahead of schedule in terms of, particularly on the offensive side, because you mentioned about the need for production. What maybe were some of the things that were ahead of schedule, and what were some of the things that you felt like we really need to catch up quickly?
Well, catch up quickly. We got to score. All right, so how are you going to get that done? We started with the protection, the run game inefficiencies. We had a couple games of good production, but we had too many negative plays on that side, and so that's a bad combination when you're, the passing game protection thrown in with a run game inefficiency. We got to get better there, which will help us. And throw in the turnover side of it, and so that all compounds when inability to be effective running the ball turns into longer down and distances, turn into throwing situations where you see more, pass pro issues. He turns into turnovers. So all of that combined, we want to do it better. I don't know. It doesn't totally jump out. I do think the scheme and the operation of it's not the simplest, right? So, we ask a lot at the line of scrimmage, communication, some of that mechanics, was something that you're pleased with. But we want to find some more consistency, whether it's down in, down out, game in and game out, this next year.
Dylan Tatum is a guy that kind of emerged as a potential leader early last year, had the early injury. Now he's a redshirt junior, gets that year back, has 2 more years ahead of him. Is he a safety? Is he a nickel? Where do you see him fitting in? And how is his health? Is he going to be on the field this spring?
Some of both, safety and nickel. He's been out there, practiced well today. Long, time coming back, and so we're, for him, because he's got some experience, has some position flexibility, like I mentioned with the safety nickel thing. He's going to get plenty of opportunities this spring to fly around. I do, and I think on the special teams end, you throw in the defense, special teams, experience, has some influence, leadership, benefit.
One of the more overlooked losses from last year's team would be Jonathan Kim graduating. Have you had any chance to look at the kicker competition?
Yep.
And how is it looking right now?
Yep, Tariq and Martin will kind of battle that out and probably go all the way through fall camp. We did have plenty of times last year where we felt good about really both those guys. Obviously, Jonathan was having the lights out year and things, and so we feel confident those two will push each other to really be solid at that position, whether we're talking field goal, PATs, or kickoff.
Coach, I'm wondering, especially with how long you've been with Aiden, if there were any sit-downs this offseason, just kind of evaluating last year and talking about his growth going into this year.
Yeah, we conversated a couple of times. Obviously, we made some additions in regards to the coaching staff with John Boyer coming on as quarterback coach, who's Aiden is familiar with. We felt like that was a way for him to have a familiar voice in regards to his development. He's motivated, Aiden, I'll say that. He understands that his game individually needs to take a step. He's anxious to do it, along with the 10 other guys on his side of the ball.
One more thing. What did you guys feel like you got done today in practice, and what do you do for the rest of this week? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, today, heavy mountain on the individual fundamental side of it, right? The movements, every technique, we're asking these guys all the way starting from our stance up. We did do some team and 7-on-7, so install some base downs, first and second down kind of schematics, the starting point. Worked on some special teams with punt. Thursday will be very similar in regards because we were only in helmets and spiders. We'll get into continue to add to the package come Saturday. We're going to emphasize through the 15, all 4 phases. Heavy emphasis though on the coverage units of punt and kickoff, like I say, and then really a lot of the scenarios that come up. Whether we're talking red zone, we'll get into third down, 2-minute. We'll do not just on the 2 scrimmages. We're going to do some live tackling outside of those, controlled. So we got to be able to tackle better. I think defensively, we want to make emphasis as affecting the quarterback. Got to get better on third down, and so that's emphasis throughout the big picture of the spring. Kind of spoke to the offensive side.
One other thing about tight ends.
Yeah.
With tight ends, you mentioned Pearcheck's going to be out. Masunas, will he be back now? How important is the spring for him? What do you see with that position? Wyatt Hook, is he still?
Yep. Both Mike and Wyatt went today. Both of them had catches today, now that I'm thinking about it. And so, those guys are healthy and getting turns. It was a blow when Mike went down last year in regards to our depth and all of that. So we feel Mike, throw in Pearcheck healthy, obviously Velling healthy and going. And then, Wyatt coming along and some of those other guys to add to that room. Okay, guys. Thanks, guys.